Hi, and welcome to Across the Desk. This week, we're going to discuss the continued and storied attacks that Republicans in the Oklahoma legislature have when it comes to public education in this state, and doing all they can to eviscerate it, make it as bad as it can be, so that things like homeschooling and private schools are the only option for your education. Here we are with Republicans attacking public education, trying to make it better. They're not really trying to make it better. That's kind of the facade, right? Because we know what they're trying to do. It's in black and white. In their own platform, they put it in their platform what it is. Eviscerating public education is the plan. Making homeschool, private school, and charter school the only viable option to a good education. If you want a good education for your kid in Oklahoma, well, it's one of three options: homeschool, charter, private. Public, that's where you would send your kid if you really don't want them to achieve anything, and it's by design. Republicans in the state of Oklahoma have set this up by design because they hate public education. A lot of them see it as socialism. You'll even hear them say it on Facebook. You'll hear them see it on Twitter. Public education is socialism. Also, so is the dang teachers' unions, right? So that's another thing. If you're a private school with private teachers, they may not be unionized. They may not be organized. But public education is. So there's another reason why conservatives hate public education. They hate it. They want to eviscerate it. They want to knock it out. They want to knock it down. And it's such a pie-in-the-sky, fantasyland thing that they have going on, because 87% of our kids are schooled in public ed. There's one reason why. There's not enough seats in private ed. That's why. That's why there's 87% of our kids being schooled in public education. And really it's more than that. It's more like 93%. I'm saying 87% because that's if you took Crossings High School, which is a private Christian school who has the largest enrollment in Oklahoma private schools. And if you said, okay, all the other 80 or so private education schools have the same amount of large enrollment as they do, because they don't, then 87% of the kids would have to go to public school because there wouldn't be any more seats. This is what they want to get rid of. This is why it's so bad here. And you know it's bad when other states like Florida are saying, hey, we don't want our education to look like Oklahoma. Here they went from 17, and in 15, 17 years, they went to 49. And it has to do with conservative leadership. They've been in charge. There's no one else to blame. And you can also see it going down the pipe. They're still doing it today. I mean, all the bills that came in, all the crazy stuff that's out there right now. I mean, I can go on. The first thing I want to talk about right here, House Bill 1780 by Representative Williams. This guy is so angst out of his mind that he wants to prohibit sex education in school. No sex education in public school anywhere. We're outlawing it with this bill because there's a bill that went in, made law that said, hey, we need to provide sex education to our kids. Well, now he's taken that law, struck everything out of it, and said we're not going to provide sex education to our kids. Because you see, people like Williams want to make sex as dangerous and just as consequency as he can make it for people, because it scares him. He's scared of stuff like sex ed. See, things like having abortions and the birth control pill and stuff like that, he just can't handle that. He can't handle conversations like that. His kids are too fragile to handle conversations like that. So therefore, your kids must also be that fragile. And if they're not, well, that's too bad. My kids are fragile, so you can't learn it. And that's how this guy is in his bill, because it cuts it all out. There's no opt-in or opt-out, because that'd be something different, right? Where you could say, hey, man, I'm not big on this sex education thing, but I understand freedom. Maybe other people want their kids who are turning 14, 15, 16, and 17 to have this education, because, you know, adolescents, their bodies start changing, they start wondering stuff, and why not give a comprehensive sex education class to let them understand it? Well, because people like Representative Williams turn into total yellow cowards when it's ever mentioned that kids under 18, between 14 and 18, because they're going through these changes, are going to learn something about sex, learn something about their body that's changing, how to take care of it. That scares him. So he has to ban it for everyone. And that's how conservatives are. You know, if it goes against my tenets, well, then you can't do it either. And the same thing with James Langford and his religious ways, right? Well, my religion says this is bad, so you can't do it. His religion says it's bad, so you can't do it. First Amendment, stuff like that. That's James Langford. But back onto the school stuff. So yeah, we got this guy Williams who puts out this bill. We'll see what happens. I don't know. We'll see. Getting rid of sex education, I think that's stupid. I think that shows someone who's so cowardly that they gotta tell other people that he doesn't know what they're gonna learn, because it might make him anxious that they learned it. Anyway, that's House Bill 1780, the anti-sex education bill. Anyway, moving on. We're going down to Ryan Walters right now, because here's the guy. He's a superintendent and the secretary and a superintendent. So he runs both roles. But anyway, so it comes out that, he came out last week and said, hey, I don't think any of our kids should go to college in Oklahoma. Oh my gosh, he actually said this. Kids shouldn't go to college in Oklahoma. He's worried about all the wokeness. There's teaching wokeness over there and indoctrination, so I don't think our kids should go there. We shouldn't send our kids to colleges. Well, almost immediately, damage control had to be done, and Governor Stitt came out with a big presser saying, I would be glad and happy to see all our kids go to colleges here in Oklahoma, and I will encourage it. He had to come out with a big press release, big presser, because Ryan Walters told everybody not to go to college in Oklahoma. Now, I bet, not that I know, but I can just see one of his moneyed interest is Betsy DeVos, who makes a lot of her money selling student loans to college kids. I wonder if a representative didn't call Ryan up and said, hey man, I don't know if you noticed, but one of the ways we make our money is off selling these loans to college kids. So I would really hope somebody called him and said, hey, idiot, what are you doing? This is my money you're messing with, not helping me. What you stop it? So and that's what it does, because it doesn't make people want to come here. It doesn't make businesses want to come here. It doesn't. But that's another thing too, right? So conservatives like Ryan Walters want to keep these woke companies who don't ascertain to our 17 principles of Oklahoma life. I don't know who came up with this, or even who was authorized to speak for Oklahomans on what Oklahomans really are, or what Oklahoma values really are. Now, we got these 7 guys over here, highly conservative, of course, to tell you and everybody else what Oklahoma values are. And Oklahoma values, well, they're oil. So you see, if it's against oil in any way, or we can perceive it against oil, it doesn't really have to be against oil. If you just say, hey, these windmills over here, that's just a bit too far for these people. So we have to actually keep these companies from coming here that could provide jobs, GDP, tax revenue, because they just don't think the way I do, and that scares a conservative. Of course it does, because if they don't think the way they do, they may not vote the way they do. And if they don't vote the way they do, well, then they will lose power, you see. And that's what scares conservatives, is losing power and control. And so we have Ryan Walters, all kinds of in the spotlight, telling you not to go to college. People come down, oh, no, please go to college. And then Ryan Walters comes out again, no, don't go to college. And then all of a sudden, here we go, we have a new Attorney General, because the last one, O'Connor, was corrupt and a fraud and very unethical. Yes, John O'Connor, unethical. But he's a Christian, but he's a big-time Christian. Yeah, but he's an unethical and corrupt Christian, if that's anything. Because here he is, AG, our new one. This guy, the only reason he went after Class Wallet was political, so he dropped it. And then he reopened the investigation back up into Ryan Walters. Not only for the Class Wallet scheme, where he let hundreds of thousands of dollars be spent on Christmas trees and barbecue grills, but also there's another $6 million that didn't get looked at, that he wants to look into, taken by this Class Wallet that hadn't been looked into. We don't know any of the fraud that may be available in that. So there you go. So we got Class Wallet, we got an investigation in that, we got another $6 million spent. They want to know what's going on with, and he totally dropped the case against the company that was issuing out this whole Class Wallet scheme anyway, because it was a political hit job and he knew it. And so there comes in the backlash to Ryan Walters in his last statements, his last buffooning statements, where he's like, don't send your kids to college in Oklahoma. I wouldn't recommend it. What an idiot. That's just dumb. You're not supporting your state when you do that. You're not supporting anything Oklahoman when you do that. And I'm really not sure where he was coming from when he started saying stuff like that. I mean, I get it. He's like, well, it's woke and it's indoctrination. I don't know if we want to send our kids there. We need to fix this. But see, there's a problem with that. The Supreme Court has definitely, and by a huge measure, say, hey, universities are First Amendment havens. They should be able to teach what they want. These are adults going to school here. They're not kids. So basically, here we go again. A conservative trying to tell adults what they're going to learn, what they're going to say, what they're going to speak, what they're going to wear, what they're going to do. And that's what this amounts to. That's what it all amounts to. It's conservative, big government, all over again. And the scams and the vagueness and all this other stuff. Because whenever you look at how they put it together, like when you go back to House Bill 1775, and you look about how vague it is. What does this mean? You know, what do these terms mean? What does this wokeness mean? Well, the definition's kept real vague so that it can just be fluid, so that they can make it mean anything they want, you see. And this really has a great benefit in one way because, see, once you pass this law, then these teachers and the universities and everybody else don't really know how to implement it. So what they end up doing is policing themselves. And what they end up doing is they over-police themselves. See, and that's the goal. See, one of the things when it comes to Senator Rob Standridge, who is pretty much an icky person, not very ethical in his own self, wants to come out with a bill. And this 1775 and keep it really vague, well, the purpose is so that teachers will over-police themselves and take this law further than he'd want it to. And then he can stand back and say, well, I didn't really mean for it to be taken that far, because this gives him cover, you see. So that it not only gives him cover to say, oh, I didn't really intend for that, by keeping it vague, it also makes these teachers and university professors over-police themselves to take this bill even further than he wanted, and he kind of gets what he wants that way. That's his whole goal. That's the whole goal. Hey, I made it vague so that they would over-police themselves. And that's why we have this. That's why we have that. That's why he wrote it that way. That's why Rob Standridge wrote the bill that way. Absolutely. That's exactly how he did it and why. Now, the other issues that were coming up, because there's so many over the last week or two. School choice. Wow. It's unpopular. Here we go. We had a poll come out, and you know what? Comes to think of it, school choice is unpopular in Oklahoma. Like, majorly unpopular. More than 2/3 of the people don't want school choice. They see what it's going to do to rural schools. They see what it's going to do to our public schools. They see that there's absolutely no controls in place for private schools. There's no oversight. There's no accountability for any of this money. Here we go, class wallet all over again. No accountability, no way to account for it. And there's nothing in place. Nobody can account for it. There's nobody qualified enough or has the power enough to go after these private schools and private charters if they misuse the money. And there again, by design, hey, let's keep these things vague and out so that way if they do misappropriate it, well then they'll be good. Because see, these are our buddies and they're giving us the money anyway. Because I'll guarantee you, just like with Epic, when they're going to get all this money, they're going to turn that money right around they get from the state and give it right back to political campaigns. That's what they're going to do with it, just like Epic did. And then they're going to get away, with fleecing millions of dollars. You think Epic was bad? Wait till we have 200-300 private schools out there doing the same thing. How are you going to police that? How are you going to have any teeth to go after anybody who does anything bad? You're not. There isn't anything in there. Because see, conservatives again, their ideals of this private education, privatize everything. It's such a utopia. If we'll do this, it can't fail. You see, they got to make sure that it doesn't. And if anything bad happens, well, we got to bury that. Because see, we can't make it look bad. It'll make us look bad, even if people steal hundreds of millions of dollars. And when these people steal hundreds of millions of dollars, that's exactly what they're going to think. Well, they're not going to come after me because it's going to make them look bad if they do. And that's exactly what you got with this school choice and it being unpopular. And one of the reasons it's unpopular is because, yeah, there's lack of accountability there. And rural schools could probably go down, go under. And there's nothing there for rural schools. I mean, if you live out in, say, Locust Grove, you'd have to go 50, 60 miles to reach the closest private school. This isn't an option for you in your rural district in your house where you live out in eastern Oklahoma. It's not an option. So that's why it's going down, and it's not getting very good grades, as far as everything else is concerned. And now the last thing I want to talk about is this bill. There's a bill by Standridge, and what it wants to do is fine teachers who teach lessons that go against a person's religious beliefs. So Rob Standridge has a bill, and it's going through, and I don't know how far along it's going to get, but it wants to absolutely fine teachers. Fine them $5,000, $10,000. A teacher that doesn't make a lot of money anyway. Fine them if they teach something that makes someone feel uncomfortable or goes against their religious beliefs. Really, that's a lot of science. I could see that. Hey, evolution, it happened 6.5 billion years ago. The sun. Oh no, that goes against my religious beliefs. The world is only 6,000 years old, so I'm going to sue you. You're teaching something that makes me feel uncomfortable. But that's Rob Standridge for you. I mean, one of the biggest cowards in the legislature is Rob Standridge. I mean, the guy cries, he whines, he's so angst out all the time that this is the kind of stuff you get from him. He's the guy who put in 1775, if it makes me feel uncomfortable. It makes Rob feel uncomfortable, so it's got to be illegal. That's where we at with the state of education in Oklahoma. This is Across the Desk, and we will see you next week.